Okay, my friends, Roger once again, and today I'm just going to put it out there. You can take it or leave it. About the time of the end, a body of men will be raised up who will turn their attention to the prophecies and insist on their literal interpretation in the midst of much clamor and opposition. Sir Isaac Newton. Well, what are the prophecies? They're not just specifically things that are going to happen in the future. They were things that were spoken about that have been rejected, in my mind. Now, I could be wrong, because something's prophetic says that you're exposing something or bringing forth something to light that normally we always thought was in the future. Well, it can be just as well in the past. And I am a scientist. I am not just a wacko, crazy person. I did all the same things that Isaac Newton would do, and now I am one of these people that he's talking about right there. And I'll tell you why I can feel very confident in saying that. All right, I'm about to show you some things that really offend people. This is the social media, the game show. All right, here they are. There's a host. To tell the truth, but no one cares. Sorry, Anne, your answer was actually correct, but Paul shouted his opinion louder, so he gets the point. And an extra bonus point goes to Sue, as she was offended by your answer. There it is right there. Social media. All right, my friends, this is about as serious as it gets. I don't know what else to say other than this is exactly what happened. No exaggerations whatsoever. This is the fish that's in the desert in Morocco. I got a message somehow to come look in Morocco, and I did, and I saw that fish, and I said, wow. And then I realized he was being attacked, and this was being destroyed, and he was being attacked by a giant dragon who was up here. And there's a dragon's head, and that's that flashy, fluty-looking stuff that runs down a dragon's neck. And this is the dragon's neck. All of this is blood and bodily fluids that ran off. The scales of his neck are up in here. And this is the inside of his neck. Runs all the way down. Now, the outside of his neck is here. These are armored plates. And that gives him flexibility. You see how there's a little pinch point in between each one of them? Little blocks. And that gives him some pretty serious looking armor. Now, and if you look at it carefully, you don't see too many hills and valleys looking like this, running this kind of a distance down the dragon's body with the flashy looking stuff that they show in the parades in China and in the Asian areas. Now, what is this? That's a chop to his neck. And what happened? What did it say in the ancient text? It says that Zeus cut his neck, chopped him his neck with his great and mighty sword. And that's a chop. I don't care what anybody says. That is a chop. And that's why this is all globbled up here. Otherwise, the neck would have just continued on. This is the chop, but it does after the chop. And this is where all the blood ran out in the desert. Right there. That's the main blood discharge. Right through that big slot. And there's no other reason for that, and all that blood running out, other than he got chopped in the neck. Now, there's some other nicks around here, down here. There's one over here. That was a pretty good nick. And then there's another couple little whacks here and there. But this is his body, and it runs the old top of North Africa. Now, they had creatures, and this is like well over 1,000 miles long. And they're all over the earth. It's not just here. And I've shown this over and over and over. So and they had the feathered serpent is real as well. And I've shown that too. So I'm not going to get too deep into it. But at one point, this was the Sahara Ocean. And it ran out here, and all of this mud collected on Cape Verde. And I had been looking at Atlantis for probably 2 years. Looking at I think the boat docks and everything are in here. All the little channels running up into the islands, to the land forms. And then all of a sudden I realized, and I was even looking at the straits, because they say that Atlantis was right outside the straits, and they say the Straits of Gibraltar. I say that's the straits. And this was an ocean, and that all ran out when that ocean drained. It's obviously, no question, this is mud, and Plato said they would never speak of mud again. That mud collected out here. And the geologists and the the people that I talked to, they say, "Oh no, it was an offshore collapse." What happened here? Well, that's a 5-year-old in a mud pit can show you this is exactly how it happens. Anyway, this was all ocean at one time. These are just too big to be living in there. I can't account for these things, but this is what dropped on me. And they say that there was going to be a time when the truths are going to be known. And if this is true, it's true. And if it's not true, you tell me why it's not true. Prove to me that this is wrong. I'm showing you things that if anybody has any eyes in their head, if they just, all they can do is recite what they were told to believe and say, "Oh no, evolution, there's no such thing as dragon, no such thing as God, that Jesus Christ thing, it's all crazy, you people are nuts." Well, no. The coin has flipped to the other side. And now they have to deal with reality or the consequences. It's truth or consequences. All right, my friends. And honestly, this was never about me. Never wanted it to be about me whatsoever. I wanted to put this information out and have it just be thought about, and it just wouldn't happen. So, and because I've been so pushed back against, even people that are very close to me still refuse to even engage in this. So I was putting this out today. Hold on. I was just sending this off to somebody today. Somebody pretty close. I said, just think about it. Maybe I am crazy, but what about this? And all these things I have talked to this person, or tried to explain to this person, and had a very hard time. I could see the glaze come over, and that was it. Now, I said, please read this whole thing if you want to understand me. If not, well, go on your own way. And I said, you know these things. I've told these things to this person. I said, something called my name to go look in the woods. And I said to my wife, I said, something called my name. And I went out and looking in the woods. And when I found the giants, and I did, I found giants. There's no question about that, because they're DNA tested and the whole shooting match. And I have them. Anybody wants to go against me, come on. Now listen to this. This is all true. Trust me, because I know truth now, and if I don't speak the truth, this is what's called the feather of truth. All right. Instantly, basically, when I came back to my computer looking for giants, this is what happened. And I'm serious, no question whatsoever. This is what came up on a screen. And I told this person this when this happened. I said, these things are for you to see and for others as a test. And that blew my mind. I searched whatever, where did it come from? It was gone, never came back. And I can't say, you put that in, it's not where on the internet that I can find. So I said, whoa, I just found giants. After being said, go look in the woods from somewhere, I woke up thinking that. This pops up. So I said, well, maybe this is a job. These things are for you to see and for others as a test. Let me give the test. 100%, and 100% of who I asked to look at it, I failed the test, 100%. And not a single person, not Yale, not Harvard, not my family, nobody. Which obviously I was distraught. Then I got this dragon message that blew me away. And I talked to that person about that. And listen to I'll tell you about this dragon message in 1 second, and I'll show you the dragon. And then I went into all the research on Ovid and Hesiod, and they talk about Typhon and Zeus and all that stuff, and I related all this stuff to what the Bible said, because that sort of made like a little bit of a consolidation from people's different viewpoints. I'm not taking anything as 100%, but you have to read all of these things. Ovid and Hesiod, extremely good. That was 800 BC or so. So that predates the Bible quite a bit. But it was all gods and monsters, and it was all, and I believe these were the ones that came out of heaven, the 200 watchers that said, hey, let's go down there and have a party. Out of the 600 that were originally sent. If you got to do some research. You can't just say, oh, this is no. Well, I did the research. 10 years I've been doing it. So I related all this stuff to what it says in the Bible, and everything was just way over the top, and still no interest literally from anybody. And as this was all happening, these phrases that I'm going to read you below simply fell out of the sky. I didn't go looking for any of this stuff. It just literally dropped on me. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you about the dragon. The dragon is in Morocco. And after, I don't know, 5 or 6 years of just being up against a stone wall, knowing I couldn't get the test out, I couldn't get anybody to look, nothing whatsoever. All I was laughed at and attacked. And the people that were attacking me were the people that wanted God. They were the flat earthers, because I wouldn't say the earth was flat. I'm not kidding you. They were the most vicious of any of them. The academics just walked away. So anyway, all of this is happening, and I am finding things I can't dispute. And I was never a God person, not whatsoever. You can show me anything that's pointed to God until I found all this stuff. I found it on my own, so I didn't have to go and ask somebody, can you show me something? No, I found it. And it's all on my property. And all these phases and everything came to me instantaneously. And this dragon, as I'm sitting here in despair after 5 or 6 years of just total denial by everybody, I'm sitting here just looking at my computer screen. I have no idea what I was doing, but all of a sudden I hear, I'm literally, I'm not kidding you, I was in tears. And I'm saying, God, I can't do this. I cannot get this done. And from behind me, I had my TV set on the other side of the room. Behind me, I hear, look in Morocco. I said, what? And I turn around, there's a car commercial on. Nothing about Morocco. So I said, well, let me look in Morocco. And I looked in Morocco, and the dragon is in Morocco, attacking a giant fish. And I had been looking in that area for minimum 2 years, like an inch below the dragon. Never saw it. What's the odds of that? And I'm going to show you the dragon by the time we're done here. But here's what these are the things that fell out of the sky on me. And a lot of them I attribute to my good friend, Pete. Pete, I thank you for your help in my awareness of what was said in the past. Now, I don't know if these all came from Pete, but they just dropped on me instantaneously after I found this stuff. Luke 19:40, and as he approached the descent from the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of disciples began to praise God joyfully in a loud voice for all the miracles they had seen by Jesus. Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest. But some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to him, Teacher, rebuke your disciples. And Jesus said, I tell you, he answered, if they remain silent, the very stones will cry out. Well, I'm seeing stones crying out, screaming. Now, then this one, listen to this. I was about as lowly as you could get, trust me, for years. And I still am, as far as I'm concerned. I don't see anybody jumping to my aid. 1 Corinthians 1:26, brothers, consider the time of your calling. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were powerful. Not many were of noble birth. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. He chose the weak things to shame the strong. He chose the lowly and despised things of the world and the things that are not to nullify the things that are. Which I am taking that as a direct command. And I am working as hard as I can at it. Titus 1:16, they claim to know God, but by their actions they deny him. They are detestable, disobedient, and unfit for doing anything good. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. Truth you will not find now. Absolutely not. They run and hide from it. This one here I found extremely enlightening. 2 Peter 2:3, in their greed, these false teachers will exploit you with tales they have concocted. And man, they have concocted tales, one right after the other. The long-standing verdict against them remains in force, and their destruction does not sleep. For if God did not spare the angels when they sinned, these are the 200 that came down and partied up with the women and ruined the whole world, cast them into hell. That's why I say there's got to be more than just paradise. He delivered them into chains to be held in gloomy darkness until their judgment. He did not spare the ancient world. He just drowned them all and boiled them all in the whole 9 yards when he brought the flood on its ungodly people, but preserved Noah, a preacher of righteousness. Now, the purpose of Jesus' parables is that in them the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled. You will be ever hearing but never understanding. That's what I'm showing them, talking to them. You'll be ever seeing but never perceiving. They just laugh at it, and it's got to be for self-interest. I can't believe anybody's incompetent to not trust the things that I have shown. I mean, they're physical. They're backed up by the science that these people, have to have. And I did it. For this, people's hearts have grown callous. They just say, yeah, screw you. Everybody's, and they hardly hear with their ears anymore. They just turn away. They close their eyes. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts. Open up your hearts a little bit. A lot of the people that, it's just been turned off. And turn on, and I would heal them, not me. And believe me, this has not had nothing to do with me. Trust me, I didn't want this, and I'm telling you, this is not a fun place to be, although I am so glad that I understand, because I do feel like there's going to be an eternity, and I want to live in a place where I'm going to have a good time. Because if everything that's been said is true, or what I'm seeing is what I found is true, points to that everything that they said in the past is quite likely got some serious merit to it. So I'm going to look into it. It says, "Blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear. For truly I tell you, many prophets and righteous men longed to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it." Yeah. And then there's literally dozens more about teachers and how they have misled society and worked in their own interest to misguide us. And that's all I can say. Now, I know that once you're in that system, you can't break out of it, so I don't want to condemn all the teachers, but that's what it says. It says their destruction does not sleep. Not my words. All right, so here I go on. I say the giants are real. No question about that. The gods were real. As far as I'm concerned, no question about that. And they are immortal. The dragons were real. No question about that. Monsters were real. As far as I'm concerned, there's no question about that. The ancient text about the flood was only 3,500 years ago. And that's all real because Velikovsky proved this. He got all the texts worldwide. They all said the same things. Gigantic flood, catastrophe. The oceans literally boiled. The waters seethed. The earth was wrenched. The sun stood still, literally, because Venus almost hit us and caused a tremendous catastrophe within our atmospheric push-to-shove reaction. So I'm saying all of this being talked about and being totally dismissed by the people we trust to give us truth, this means that very likely eternity is real. I'm going to go with eternity. I'm saying dust to dust, ash to ashes, dust to dust. How do you get your eternity? What part of you goes into eternity? I don't know. They say it's your eternal soul. These are the things I really want to find out about. But I believe now there is an eternity. I said likely there's an eternity, and it's likely quite real. And likely there is a good one and a bad one. It's what I said. Now, those are not my words. They talk about heaven and hell. They talk about purgatory and bad, nasty things happening. Is it true? I don't know. And I said, I am still 100% material science. Everything I'm talking about, I can show you. Nobody ever showed me anything about God in the past. Nobody has ever, still nobody can. But I could see, and I was never a Jesus freak or a God person at all. But then the evidence I discovered, not theory whatsoever. I didn't have to accept theory that was forced onto me. What I discovered is pretty clear after 10 years of studying with an open mind. Believe me, I had a hard time believing what I was seeing, absolutely. And I had a hard time believing the sequence of events that led me to these conclusions about God. And I have to believe in Jesus too, because he's the only one that came along that was talking about peace and love and all that stuff in his heart. And I think that you better damn well have that in your heart, or you're not going to find Jesus. And if you don't find Jesus, I'm not, there's a good one and a bad one. You take it for what it's worth to you. But everything I found right here on my property. And then you know the rejection, and I know truth when I see it, and my eyes see truth finally. And I'm hoping this person will understand. And just stop to think about it a little bit, because if eternity's real, I'm reaching the end of my life cycle. I'm 73 years old. I'm in good shape. I'm not so worried about dying tomorrow, but who knows? Tomorrow's just another day. Out of, like, it seems to me, you know, I go by trash day. Every week at Friday, well, Thursday night, I got to put the trash out. And it seems like it's Thursday night every day. I say to my wife, I said, I just put the trash out yesterday. But I'm telling you, this life does not last long. When you get to a certain age, you realize the case is going to close. You better figure out what that means to you. Now, so far, I've never had any meaning to it whatsoever. I just figured, well, whatever happens, happens. And I find out, and it's true, it's still, I can't say what's going to happen. I have no clue. But I'm still looking. And that's what Jesus says. Don't stop looking until you find. When you find, you will be disturbed. And he also said the earth is a body and a corpse. All right, so start thinking for yourself, is all I can say. Because if you follow those teachers, you know, their destruction does not sleep. That's not a good place for you. In their greed, these teachers will exploit you with tales they have concocted. Absolutely. Evolution, that's insanity. Absolute insanity. Read Hesiod and Ovid. As a matter of fact, let me quickly give you a hit on Ovid or Hesiod, one or the other, about the theogony, about the beginning, the gods, and they were insane. They were literally insane. So don't. But I think those were the bad ones. I think those were the ones that went against the good gods, because the gods they talk about, they were just whacked. All right, let's go with Ovid here. This is a summary of Ovid. Ovid begins the Metamorphoses by invoking the gods. Now, Ovid took all of the past texts. He lived at the time of Julius Caesar, which was before Christ, just before Christ. And he compiled everything up to that time, and he called it Metamorphoses, which was, Metamorphosis means it's like a butterfly coming out of a caterpillar. And this is what they did. They changed everything to anything they wanted to. They could make people into rivers, mountains. Well, here it is. He starts it by invoking the gods, asks them to inspire his work, which opens with the creation of the world. The creation of the world. How did it all start? And it continued on to the present day of his present day, and is about the transformation of bodies, which is what I've been showing. After the short prayer, Ovid describes the birth of the world. A creator separated earth from the heavens, from the chaos. Earth started to congeal. Sea from the land. All right, the elements started to find their own place in the chaos. He separated the lighter air from the heavier air, and all that is light. The lighter air is literally light. It's above the ionosphere coming to us. The heavier air is below the ionosphere, and that is where you have all your molecules. Above the ionosphere, you have literally the lighter air, which is light. It's literally the particles of light. I've shown this. He then made beings to inhabit these new spaces. This is what the gods did. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going with this. The gods and stars filled the heavens, and the gods and the stars and the planets and the moons are gods. I've shown this too. I know it's crazy, but it sure is. And then he filled the heavens, the fish, the sea, the beasts, the land, the birds, the air. Man was created to rule the world. So we really had a good thing going on, but that didn't last long. There were 4 ages that followed. The age of gold was a time of trust. Everybody worked with everybody else. There was no building nuclear bombs because you were afraid someone was going to attack you in the middle of the night. That's absolute insanity. There was moral goodness. People took care of each other. They worked with each other. They were moral. They realized their obligations. And like the academics they will not fulfill their fiduciary moral obligation to students to look into these things that are in the student's best interest. It's not in the student's best interest to be told lies. And at this point, after 10 years, they are liars. Frauds and liars. Now, there was moral goodness. There was trust. People knew that they could work with each other, and there was fruitfulness. They didn't even have to work. Everything was just provided for them in the Golden Age. Is what they say. This is in the ancient text. Then the Silver Age, people had to work for a living. Then the Age of Bronze saw the first wars, and then it just went out of control. Some semblance of morality persisted. In the Iron Age, however, nothing was sacred. Even family ties led to bloodshed. They'd kill each other, just at the drop of a hat. And then that's when they got mad, the gods. They said, okay, this is it. I'm going to close this case. In the Iron Age, the gods appear and witness human impiety. In particular, Jupiter visits the house of Lycaon, who treats Jupiter with the greatest disrespect, even trying to murder him in his sleep. Outraged, Jupiter decides to punish humanity with a flood. Jupiter literally gave birth to Venus, the fiery comet, which almost destroyed Earth by crashing into our atmosphere, causing the giant flood and boiling the oceans. All of this stuff was recorded by Velikovsky. And he did it because of their piety. And Deucalion and Pyrrha survived. Now that's Noah and his wife. No one else does. That's not what I found. Now, Themis gives Deucalion and Pyrrha cryptic advice about how to repopulate the earth. They must cover their heads, let their garments loose, cast the bones of their great mother behind their backs. Initially, Pyrrha is disheartened because she interprets the advice as sacrilegious. Or how can I throw my bones? However, they were talking about rocks. He says, how can she desecrate her mother's bones? Deucalion has a different interpretation. He thinks Themis was referring not to their actual mother, but to the earth. They try throwing stones behind them, and the stones morph into people. The stones were people before. Or they were some kind of creatures, because that's what stones are. You think I'm kidding you? That's what they are. Even though you don't realize it. That's not a rock. That's a mud fossil. These were from the Great Flood. And they were after the Great Flood. They just took the bits and pieces of the little people, because they couldn't throw the giants up. So the little people started to repopulate the earth, it seems like to me. Now, so they throw it and they start repopulating with people. So Apollo speaks disparagingly to Cupid, who shoots 2 arrows in retaliation. The first arrow causes Apollo to fall in love. The second arrow makes the object of his love flee from him, who is Daphne. Apollo pursues Daphne, but she rejects him. Apollo pleads and persists. Daphne cries out to her father for help. He responds by transforming her into a laurel tree. Not entirely deterred, Apollo gropes the tree. At this point, Jupiter catches sight of a young nymph, and lust fills his heart, and he rapes her. Juno, Jupiter's wife, suspects something. To throw his wife off the scent, Jupiter turns Io into a cow. But this move makes Juno even more suspicious. She asks Jupiter for Io as a present and sets many-eyed Argus to keep watch over the transformed Io. Upset by Io's great distress, Jupiter sends Mercury to kill Argus. This is insanity. I mean, Mercury succeeds and Io is eventually transformed back into a nymph. She has a son by Jupiter, Aphagus. Now listen to this. From the first sentence of Metamorphoses, Ovid makes it clear that he is not writing a traditional epic. He states outright that his intention is to create something new, writing, "My mind carries me to speak of bodies changed into new forms." The phrase new forms suggests that Metamorphoses will not mimic Virgil's and Homer and Iliad and so forth. Ovid differentiates himself by further from Virgil by stating that his mind moves him to write instead of calling on a muse for inspiration. Ovid calls on the gods. Now, let me just show you a little more about this. All right, you should read Ovid Metamorphoses if you want to know about the beginning of our history, and he calls on all of the earlier writers, Hesiod and so forth. Hesiod was basically the first in my mind. And anyway, Ovid begins the Metamorphoses by invoking the gods. Now, here's the thing I want you to take away from this, and this has nothing to do with me, that I'm special or anything. Trust me, this was just fell on me, and all I can do is just show you what I can show you. I tried to stay out of it, but I can see I'm not getting anywhere. And hopefully you'll understand that you have to go back and start to study. You can't just go looking and saying, this is great. And that's fine. To be stimulated by seeing things that you never expected to see, yes, absolutely. Spectacular, fabulous, all of those syllables or statements to say, it's something that excites you, let's put it that way. But I would go a little deeper than just being excited on the surface. I would go for a little depth of excitement. And here's what I have been talking about. Is it going to be a good end to things or a bad end to things? But I don't see there's any other way. I don't think there's going to be an end. It's going to be a good resolution to your life or a bad resolution to your life. Let's go with that. And here's what, and this is when there was 600 watchers supposedly sent for man to be in charge of the earth, and 200 of them came down to earth just to party, and they destroyed everything, and then that's how the whole thing fell apart. So in the first golden age, everything was perfect. Everything was absolutely flawless. Look at this. 4 ages. Well, here's what happened. The Creator separated earth from heaven, seas from the land, the lighter air from the heavier air. That's where the ionosphere is, and that's what they call the, what do you call it? I call it the ionosphere. Firmament. That's the firmament. And it's outside there is where our atmosphere stops. And that's where it gets hotter than it can be, because we're scrubbing through the rest of space. But it's not like we're living under a dome and we're flat or anything. But what's on the other side? I mean, please, please, please don't attack me for this. It's been 10 years of being attacked by flat earthers who I am trying to show what our original history is, and academics just love flat earthers. It makes me look like an idiot because so don't do it, please. Don't start commenting about it. You go somewhere else for that stuff, because it's not, it makes everything else I say just silly, because I'm showing these worlds colliding with other worlds, and the spinning things, and the gods, and all this stuff. And if you don't pay attention to that, and all you say is, I read the Bible, and that's it, and somewhere in the Bible it said the earth is flat. I don't know. I've never seen anything about that, but I have not read the Bible. I had a few things drop on me. I didn't go cherry picking them. Oh, you cherry pick the Bible. No, I don't. I just don't read it. I never read it. I read all of these texts. I don't have time to read the entire Bible. I've heard so many things said, and I know the Bible was rewritten from these earlier texts. Metamorphoses and all that stuff was way before the Bible. Well, Metamorphoses was 35 BC, I think, was when that was written. But Ovid was 800 BC. Plato, 700 or somewhere around 400. I forget now. But it's way BC compared to the Bible. So I know the Bible was not. It might have been very highly inspired, though, by Jesus, because he was here, and they were these. I guess these were the guys that were following him around, his disciples. So maybe it was an inspirational text, and it overrode Hesiod and Ovid. But these are the things that we need to look into. I don't know. I don't have the answers to these things, but I can tell you what: the way they say this all happened. The gods created everything. After they created from the heaven and the seas and the lighter air and the heavy air, they made the beings to inhabit the new spaces. They created all kinds of fish and the seas and the beasts and the land, the birds and the air. Man was created to rule the world. We had the top slot. But what happened? 4 ages followed. The age of gold was a time of trust and moral goodness. That was before, I think, the Watchers decided, boy, these chicks look too hot to leave alone. And then they came down. We had fruitfulness. We had everything. Then in the Silver Age, they came down and they sort of made us work for a living to sort of support them, is what my take on that is. So in the Silver Age, people had to begin to work for a living. Everything, they couldn't just pick it up and eat it. They had to actually do some work. All right, now, the Age of Bronze saw the first wars. Now, to me, I see that as the 200 bad angels that came down here. They were gods too. They were lesser gods. And they started fighting amongst themselves. And that's what it sounds like, because they were all kinds of crazy. I mean, absolutely crazy monsters and things. And giving birth to things and transforming things into mushrooms and people into rivers and into planets and into moons. All of those moons, the names of the moons and the planets and everything, those were all gods. And they still are, as far as I can tell, because they're supposed to be eternal. Now, I don't know about what's going to happen. No clue. But there was these 4 ages. The Age of Gold, everything was good. You people be good. Just take care of the earth. I love it. I can walk through the garden and see my people in their happiness. Well, then the bad gods came down, and they showed them how to paint their faces and wear earrings and all these kind of things. I mean, I was saying earrings are bad, but, you know, what they did was they came down and took advantage of the, you know, these moral people. And then 4 ages followed. Well, the first was the gold, as I said, then the Silver Age, which people had to work for a living, probably to support the gods. The Bronze saw the first wars. They started fighting amongst themselves. But there was still some moral people and so forth. And then in the Iron Age, everything went totally in the toilet. And they were killing their own people and their own family, and who knows what else was going on. But that is Ovid's writing about our start. And he said, just for their own pleasure, they were turning people and gigantic creatures, miles and miles and miles tall, into the landscape. Let me just show you the dragon, and I'm going to wrap it up at this. But this is not about me, it's about you. You take it for any way you want to take it. But I'm not getting anywhere showing the things I'm showing. People are only interested in some stimulating little fancy-looking thing. And my whole reason for doing this is to try to understand what the hell is going to happen to me. And I hope it is not hell. I'm looking for a good end to this thing. And like I said, I don't think there's just an end and nothing happens. And there are more obligations. There seems to be obligations that people just don't seem to think are important or even worth thinking about. So, again, sup to you.